Welcome to Tips Over Tea. This is season 2. I am so thrilled to have the opportunity to have great conversations with some amazing people. And I have the opportunity to hang out with you guys again, my guests. Make sure you have your tea, whether it be hot or cold, for the Tips Over Tea. And make sure you have your notebook so you can take plenty of notes. And if you're so inclined, bring a friend or two to join you. For now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tips Over Tea. I am so thrilled to welcome Fiona Wong to the show. Guys, it's going to be a great conversation. Fiona, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation. You know how it is.
Yes. For those projectors out there, you got that. So I invited Fiona because she is, in my eyes, a guru in human design. And I've recently added that to my coaching practice. And when I have conversations with people, they are very intrigued. And it's just a beautiful system. For me, it's like a self-love, self-acceptance type journey for me. But I wanted to bring Fiona on there, just be on here because one, just to kind of learn how you got started in this. And then we also are going to cover a topic that doesn't get talked about much. So I'm excited to cover that with you. But first, I would love for you to kind of introduce yourself and how human design came into your life.
Yeah. So my name's Fiona Wong, and I don't really know what to say about myself because usually just like, I'm just this person who really likes human design, and I dress like a gremlin sometimes because but there's a type in human design, the manifester, and they essentially historically were the tyrants, the dictators, the kings and queens, the monarchs of the world. And those types of people tend to initiate me into something new in my life. So I was actually working for this manifester, and on paper we looked great together, just two powerhouse women. Like, we get a goal, like that's it, just get out of the way because we're going to make that happen. So projector supporting manifester, usually a match made in heaven. We couldn't communicate. So you get two very strong personalities who can accomplish goals and make great things happen in the public eye, but behind the scenes, just all the time, so stubborn, the two of us. And as it goes, because we couldn't communicate, we decided the best course of action was to do couples therapy, which is getting a joint human design reading. That was the solution to that. And I hated it. It's like, what do you mean I got to wait for an invitation? I'm a Capricorn. Everything I have in my life is because I went after it. I started getting so defensive. I got so offended that I was like, there was nothing wrong with the reader, as we know. It's like, it was not her problem. It was all me. She just reflected what was in me back to me. And I was like, no. And something else I learned after that was I really didn't love myself at that point in my life. So to be told about me and for me to have that visceral reaction, about a year later, I just had this aha moment, like, wow, I have a lot of like self-love issues. For me to like, I wouldn't have reacted that way if I was just like, oh yeah, I don't relate to that. But like, I got so upset. And when my body gets that way, I know something's up. So I didn't like human design for a long time, and I actually related to my profile, which is kind of like if the FBI had a document on you, all your personality traits, your MO, things like that, that's your profile in human design. And my profile told me that I'm on this planet not necessarily for academic knowledge, but to do like the trial and error process, that a lot of things I'm going to like fail or make mistakes from other people's perspectives, but I can't help it. I've tried so many different businesses, I have such like a range of different skill sets, but I don't really feel like I've mastered a whole lot of them. It's just this range. And then of course I'm good at like one or two things. And when I realized that about myself, I gave myself so much permission to just like stop planning for an outcome. For me, it's just like, yeah, I want to go here, but none of the plans are going to work. I'm just going to keep tripping over my feet. And it's like, I always use Alice in Wonderland as an analogy in human design. It's like you follow this white rabbit, but you don't know why you're following this white rabbit. You just want to know what happens. And then you meet this caterpillar that's like smoking something and like feeding you mushrooms to like change in size. And all these people are trying to give you tea, and there's a drunk mouse somewhere. That's what it felt like. And for me to just be like, realize this is normal. This is my normal. Everyone else is weird. Everyone else is like, you're failing, your mistakes. That was my baseline. And that gave me so much permission. And after that, I was like, well, I guess I look more into human design. And then I read the charts of like my friends and people I knew. And there's the question of, so how do I pay you, Fiona? Like, oh, can I refer my friends and they'll pay you? Oh, like that's
I
how
love that is awesome. That's been pretty much the experience I've had, and then me working with clients, that giving yourself permission, that self-acceptance that, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. This is how I'm designed, like energetically.
Mhm.
Just so that is, you shared that beautifully. And of course, I'm watching Alice in Wonderland as you're talking, and I've not seen that movie in ages.
Mhm.
Now people are gonna go watch it. So you tripped into human design, kind of, sort of,
Mhm.
um, and you have since made a career of it, which I am so grateful for. I found you. Um, how did you? So you first just started off reading charts, and then
Mhm.
how did you transition into the ancestral um, readings and things like that from that lens, from the human design lens?
It's because I've like in my culture, we we practice in the English translation. It is Chinese folk religion, and it's also called what is it? We call it Shenism, and Shen is the word for the divine. So it's not just like God; it's like all the Buddhas and all of these strange creatures and everything, the dead, all of that happening. So I woke up every single morning and it was just like, go grab 3 sticks of incense, go talk to your Buddhas. You know,
Mhm.
hello Buddhas. You know, I'm like 4 years old. I don't know what to talk to Buddha about. Like, I hope I get that pony and da da da. Thank you so much for my life, and then the ancestors sit below them, and I'd kneel down, refill their tea. Hello, my ancestors. Like, da 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 da. Don't know what I'm saying here, but I hope you like your tea. If anyone's watched Mulan, it like all the ancestors like coming forward and having this like grand thing happening and like a little dragon running around. That's essentially how I view ancestral veneration in my culture. So I've grown up having this relationship anyway,
Mhm.
and women in my culture, we all know how to read palms in our own way, read the stars, read faces. So I grew up with that. It was very normal for
Mhm.
me. It was normal the first time I picked up a deck of cards. My mom bought me my first Ouija board before I was 10 years old. It's just like, just don't summon anything in this home. Like, who says that to their child? It's for the women who have like given this
Yeah.
practice. So that's my connection to my culture, my ancestors. So when human design fell onto my lap, it's not like I could remove that. I
Mhm.
couldn't just remove that from my body. Everything in human design is through my lens. Everything is filtered through me, right? I think I recently told you, like all the stuff in human design, that's just paint. It's just
Yes.
paint. But every reader paints their own way. Every reader has a different vision, their different experiences, the way they react to the environment. And for me, because I think about my ancestors every day, and um, for me, I don't have altars because I have a tiny apartment and cats, but I kind of feel like I'm an altar for my ancestors. They're in my veins, they're on my skin, they're every part of me wrapped in me. So there's no way for me to read a chart and not have not just my ancestors talking and flowing through me and their power, but the person sitting across from me. I feel like their ancestors are sitting there sometime. I'll get these like strange messages sometimes where I'm like, this is unrelated to human design, but I got this like thing. I'm going to tell you, I don't know what it means, but here you go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of woven in there as well.
Nice. So, and I love that, and I understand that experience as well. It's given me a different perspective when like I get those type channel type messages as well. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna explore that. So when someone is coming to you, what would inspire someone to get a reading, or do you do specifically readings for around ancestral things, right? Or no?
Normally I have people fill out this intake form, like, what do you want to talk about? And that's usually like they kind of get something off their chest when they're doing that. Like they tell me the story and I actually do their chart first. I prep the chart first because I don't want to be biased. And then
Mhm.
I'll look at their intake form and I'm like, haha. But every session I start off with, so what is your relationship with human design now? Like it doesn't matter if they got a reading from someone else, if they read a blog post, been in their experiment for 5 years. I just want to know in that moment what that relationship is. And oftentimes the conversation comes up organically. Oftentimes, like, because we can't separate culture or religions from a person. We can't separate spirit from them. So when they sit down, I can't separate their ancestors from them. Some they'll just speak it. They'll organically bring it up. They'll bring up the cards they use. They'll bring up their experiences raising children, watching the wonder of the world. It just happens. If they want to come out, they're going to come out. There's no stopping those forces.
This is true. So how is it? How do you use it within human design? Like I've done um, like past life readings. I've
Mhm.
things like that. So how is it woven into human design through the way you use it,
So
other than
I
messages? Go ahead.
I believe that every single one of us is a descendant of survivors because whether it is in primitive times, whether it is through war, atrocities that we've done to each other as human beings, every single one of us exists because the people that came before us survived. Human
Mhm.
design, we have something called the splenic center. It is in all primitive creatures, including our ancestors. The like every single person, every like plants, insects, they all have splenic centers. So I say that center is where we carry out not just ancestral knowledge, but their
Mhm.
trauma as well. And on a more mundane side, on a more day-to-day side, we are influenced, we're conditioned by the people who raised us.
Mhm.
And sometimes, well, oftentimes, they project their trauma upon us. And usually they mean well. They're trying to keep us safe, but they're doing it through their trauma. And there we go. We got the generational trauma there. Now we got the generational cycles. But the reason for us to exist, the fact that we're even alive right now, is because a story wasn't finished. Something
Mhm.
like if my lineage of story was done, I wouldn't need to exist. There is no point. But I'm
Oh,
also like first generation in this country. I'm the first one to have mixed children. I'm the
mhm.
first person to become a single mom. And for me, understanding my human design, I can see how different I am versus the culture I came from. I am very proud of my heritage, of my lineage, but there were still places where it could have been improved upon. There was, I think, in a lot of cultures, like misogyny is still a thing where women are not considered equal to them. And whether it's a man with like a daughter wanting to work through that ancestral cycle and trauma, or me, I actually have sons. I only have sons. And something that I mentioned when we spoke earlier, something I'm really adamant about is I will not raise helpless sons. I
Yeah.
will not raise sons that take advantage of their partners or they grow up feeling helpless. I will not raise sons that another woman's going to have to take care of once they leave the nest. And for me, I find that this is one way I am ending something not just generational, but something cultural that we are still passing down in the modern day. And for me, I have the cross of love
Mhm.
as something that's my incarnation cross. This is my purpose for being on this planet, and I'm still learning about it. I learn about it every day. So my first thing was self-love. That was the first like kick in the mirror. I worked with a beautician. She was a client of mine for a while, and she asked if I was open to doing something called mirror work. And
Mhm.
I have a really fractured relationship with my mother, but I look like her. I'm
Mhm.
grown up now. And when I looked in the mirror, all I saw was her, and
Mhm.
I could not handle it. I started crying, and there was this message of, you cannot love yourself because you associate yourself with the identity of your mother, not just you. Okay. My mother grew up in a time, and I cannot fault her for being this way, but she grew up out of poverty. She was taught you have to be beautiful, you have to maintain certain weight standards, you have to be youthful and marry a rich man. Otherwise, you will not eat. You will not be okay. And that's what my mother taught me. It's you have to be beautiful. If you have a child, you must bounce back from it and remain youthful. And I really resented that growing up. I resented that so much, but I couldn't stop but see her in me. And I realized this is a cycle for so many women. For me to talk to other women, and it's like, yeah, my mother went through that. My grandmother went through that as well. It helped me realize I needed to love myself outside of, will I be loved by a man? Will I be loved by, my family just because of the way I look? So that is part of it. And when I noted my sons, when I had them, I did not want to think of it as, will they get rich so they can marry a woman and save that woman? Will they secure a beautiful wife just to be a trophy? So these are the things that I have learned through my human design. It's just one part of my human design, this ability to understand love, to be, it's called the vessel of love. It's like the Ace of Cups. It's just overflowing with water and life. And that's a part of that journey right now, that birth, that giving birth to that next generation, and seeing my part in it is to love. My part is to love me so my sons can love themselves. And if I have a daughter, so she can love herself as well. I don't know where the story continues with my children, but I know my place and I know what makes me feel loved and happy.
I love that. It's so challenging for people to get to that place. Like a lot of people that I work with, they are leaders in their environment, but quiet on the quiet side, the stuff they keep to themselves, they are struggling on the inside. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like human design does help give start to that process. Um, and I love that your stylist introduced you to mirror work. That is not easy.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not.
tough. Yeah. And I
It,
I tell people, especially like us projectors, like when we look at someone, that's exactly what we're doing. We're looking right into their soul. And I try to be compassionate, that everyone wants to be seen until they're seen.
mhm.
Everyone wants someone to know who they are until someone knows who they are. And now it's like, it's not just the good stuff. It's not just the elevated parts. It's, well, there's all the garbage as
Yeah.
well. Here's all the stuff I've accumulated over the years.
Yes. Definitely. I remember I was at a workshop and we were all getting to know each other, and this one lady was just sharing and I was just looking and listening, and she was like really uncomfortable. I'm like, what is my aura doing right now? It's like
Mhm.
I'm a projector as well, for anyone who, because I've not had a conversation about human design yet until you, so
Oh.
thank you. Yeah. um, so it's interesting to just remember that we have the responsibility to hold the place also,
Mhm.
as we're allowing them to, for their shadows to be seen and not judged. So I don't
Mhm.
take that lightly.
Yeah, and there's also interpretation,
Hmm.
which is so important. I think there's such a fine line between a lot of things, such as being a leader, being a tyrant. It's all perspective. It's all two sides of the same coin. And then there's like marketing and manipulation. And
Yeah,
I find that so interesting, because when you're marketing, you're manipulating other
yeah,
people to buy something. Like if you are on a dating app, you're marketing yourself. We call it being on the market. So are
yeah.
you marketing yourself, or are you manipulating people to want to be with you? How
Mhm.
do we argue either one of those? And I think it also, that type of language helps
Mhm.
so much, because for to be able to rephrase it, for people to be able to say, oh, all I have to do is kind of like switch the verbiage a little
Mm.
bit, and it begins to give a different context. It opens that door to exploring, is this something that's genuinely bad or negative? I don't like using those words in human design because like everyone lives differently. Something that's bad for me is like amazing for somebody else. Whatever, it is what it is.
Mhm.
So I think I think that's another awesome thing about human design. It's when you see it in a chart, it's
Mhm.
validation. When I'm telling someone, like giving advice to a friend, it's like, yeah, that's nice. But when I say, and here on this part of your chart is where I see it, that's when all of a sudden people are like, tell me more, Fiona. And it's like, I'm telling you the same thing I told you, but without the chart. So,
I was just having that conversation last night with people. I was like, you can tell people, but the tangible things, the
mhm,
visual really, really helps sink it in for some people.
mhm.
And having the science to back the words helps.
Yeah, and showing like this is you, this is your partner. Do you see how different these charts are? Do you now see how different you two are? There's just something like very
Yeah,
whoosh about
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, yeah. The partner charts, um,
Mhm.
and charts with kids, because I know you were also talking about human design with kids. So have you
Mhm.
worked with parents, like parent-kid relationship? How have you used it with children? Um,
We can use connection chart readings with children, but what I remind people is children are we read them differently because children have not been alive long enough to have conditioning. It's just an
mhm,
experience thing, it's just an age thing, it's just an opportunity thing. No matter what a child has been through, there's going to be a lot more for them to go through. So children live in a very pure form of human design because one, like they don't know what human design is. So
mhm,
people that don't know what human design is, I call them all very pure
mhm,
because human design is automatic. You don't have to do anything. It's constantly happening. And to watch it just happen for these people, I encourage parents to not necessarily force human design upon their children, but if there is an issue, if there is a need, perhaps
mhm,
design it around their child. Like one of my children has a cave environment, which means that he needs to have a lot of privacy and he needs to be able to determine who is allowed in his room or not. He doesn't know this about him. And we make a lot of forts for him when he's in his room, doors closed. Like, I always knock on the door. Like, yeah, I think it's normal for parents to just open and be like, hey, what's up? Just making sure you're okay. But for me, I always make sure I knock just to kind of honor that part of him.
mhm,
But
mm,
that is the difference between reading for children and reading for parents. A lot of parents just come to me because their children are going through something. It's depression, they're being bullied, or my child's not listening to me. What's
mhm.
happening? And we get to talk about it very differently versus a burnt out, let's say 50-year-old who is just like, yeah, I'm quitting my job, I'm starting my own business, and I'm divorcing my spouse. Like, totally can have identical charts, which I've never seen before, by the way, two identical charts. But they could have identical charts, but we would read it differently
Yeah,
because of their ages.
yeah. That is interesting. What I also like about that whole concept that you just said is like people who are skeptical because they think like horoscope is all generalized and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, human design is so much like a fingerprint.
Mhm.
It's like people are worried about, or they were worried about being labeled, you know,
Yeah.
like how with um uh Jesus, introverts and extroverts are like labeled, and people will subscribe to that label and they'll make sure they adhere to that label. And
Mhm.
I like try to remind people like human design is not a label. Like you're not just gonna, oh, I'm a this, so I have to do, you're gonna automatically do that because that's how your
Yeah.
energy is.
Yeah, I noticed that, like, when I mentioned my cross of love, I noticed that as well. Like, I've read so much self-help, like, self-love books, and I'm sure I got what I needed from that, but I also realized that the way I treated other people, even the way my website looked, my content when I write it, it is a
Mhm,
pure, like, projection of how I view the world, how I
mhm,
view love, and I didn't realize that when I read writing from when I was in my 20s, I was like, "Wow, I
mhm,
hated everything.
mhm,
Everything was terrible." I was that teenager with, like, red streaks in my hair, like punk rock, like, everything because I just hated the world so much. I thought everything was just terrible. And I could see it in my writing, this evolution, this shift of, well, things are not so bad. I love my babies. Like my cats are lovely. You know, my cat loves you and my cat loves you. For those that don't know, my cat decided to sit by Nicole on my computer screen, like just stared at her and then stuck his ear next to the speaker and started like rocking himself to sleep. I have never seen that kind of behavior before. So, but yeah, there's an expression of love that I've projected upon my cat.
I love that. Animals are amazing.
Yeah, but I just wanted to kind of say like that is what automatic
Yeah.
means. Like for me, that's what love looked like a long time ago. It's this love of hating the world and being cynical and identifying with that. Whereas now that part of my chart didn't change. I just perceive love differently, so I act differently, and that's something to understand about human design. It's not like here's this one fixed thing about you. It's here's this thing, here's this paint, but you're going to use it differently throughout your
Yeah.
life. It's going to tell different stories.
Mhm. That is such a beautiful way of sharing it so that exactly people are not like, that's not me. I don't want to, be pigeonholed. So I love
Mhm.
that is a beautiful way of how you're projecting your love. I'm loving to hate or I'm loving to love.
Yeah.
I'm still loving.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I like the way you put that. Um,
Thank you.
this- you're welcome. This is why I was like, I was talking to a cousin of mine. I'm like, I think you need to talk to Fiona. She has a way of explaining human design because I just introduced her to it, and she was reading some of the stuff, and some of the free stuff online can be jarring and very you can't like it just doesn't, especially as a new person, you're like, I don't know about that.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I want everybody can talk to Fiona because she has a way of putting it because that's one of our projector traits or gifts, right? Just the way we break things down, and you have definitely been really good at that. So for because we're like almost like 3 minutes. I would love for you to share how people can connect with you if you're taking clients. If you have a cohort or something coming up, please feel free to share it. And of course, we'll put links in the description as well. But yeah,
I'll probably get that sent over because I just human design and make the content. Like everything else after that, I have someone else taking care of
that's
for
not
me because
that
we're projectors and
yeah.
we only have so much energy and I can't be arsed with all that. But I can be found on thewildpixel.com. I actually usually promote things on my email list because again, I have limited energy and I cannot be arsed to do things I do not love. And
Mhm.
Instagram, the wild pixel with an underscore. I post a lot of memes on there. I don't take myself that seriously because if you can't laugh about yourself and human design, I don't see the point. So I share it with memes. I think I just posted something about the minions. Minions, if they were generators, manifesting generators, a generator invited me to post that. So I was just like, yes, you guys are minions. So
It's
yeah,
so
that's pretty much it.
true. Awesome. Yeah, I one thing I do love about Fiona, I'm not a huge like TV person, but I know like the way you use characters in movies, I can identify like, oh yeah. So I just love the way you're creative with how you explain it, how you share it, and you the way you just like fully accept who you are. You like stepped into your power is just very inspiring. So um, thank you for
Thank
being here.
you. Thank you for seeing me. Like, wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we do. Awesome. So, any last final thoughts before we close out the call?
Yeah, well, if you look up your human design and you're overwhelmed, well, you should be because you're not a simple person. Nobody's simple. You're complex. you have conflicting things about you, right? A lot of people are like, well, I'm kind of a hypocrite because no, no, no. It's like, well, yes, because you have both of it in your design. So you got that tug and pull. So if you're overwhelmed, you're kind of doing it right. Like I'm like 5, 6 years into my experiment. I'm constantly learning new things about myself, not even looking at my chart. At the end of the day, we're so complex. We are all put onto this planet to have all of these tools, and human design shows you what you're made of, like what you're capable of. It's just a lot of times we downplay ourselves, right? We kind of just we do that pigeonholing. We just make ourselves so small, and then
Mhm.
we look at human design and it's like, that's me? All that
Mhm.
is me? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Like, wow. Huh, there's nothing wrong with me. Nope. You are
Right?
perfectly perfect.
Yeah, your ancestors made you crazy. So
Yeah.
you're gonna be in this world like that. You were made like that.
Embrace
Yeah.
it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and giving just new perspectives, and really just helping define what human design is so that next time
Mhm.
someone either goes back to their chart or now goes and looks through their chart, they can have a different lens as they're learning. And yeah, I appreciate that. Mm.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun. I liked it.
Good. Awesome. And you're always welcome back. Anytime you like something else comes up, we'll have another conversation. I would love it.
Thank you. Well,
You're
I
welcome.
hope you have a good one.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I know you got a lot of nuggets. I hope you took some notes. Fiona's information will of course be in the description if you want to reach out to her. And so for now, until next time, ciao for now. Bye everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Hope you enjoyed the show and got a lot of good information. Be sure to like, subscribe, tap the bell so you know when we air again. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Enjoy the rest of your week.